What a crazy night last night, huh?
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He's
As
in
a as a
Canada.
as a Canadian, it was pure entertainment, I'll be honest.
It's been
Comparing.
such a challenging issue, and it's an amazing opportunity to check in with ourselves about the energy that we're bringing to the world.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Teen Talks. We are continuing our conversation with Ellie, our wonderful guest, who we have the pleasure of speaking with again. And yeah, this is part two, and we're very excited to have this conversation. Let's get into it. What a crazy night last night, huh?
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He's
As
in
a as a
Canada.
as a Canadian, it was pure entertainment, I'll be honest. But no, yeah, I with my parents, we were watching the election from I would say 7, even 6:30 p.m. Eastern
Hmm.
until 10 o'clock. And then I had to go because I had a soccer game, so I went to go play. That ended at midnight. I came back home at about like 12:30 a.m. and then I watched it until 3. Like I was
Oh my
just like
gosh.
Wow, you were glued to it.
And you're not
I
even American? Dang,
know
I went to bed.
we we
I
even we got we
didn't know
got
till this
like
morning.
we paid for CNN as well. I
Mm.
think. I think it was CNN. I don't know which channel. Yeah, I'm pretty sure CNN. And the guy was just like giving like the whole analysis of everything, and like I
Yeah.
was like, whoa! And he knew his stuff. I was like so impressed. I was like, what? How does he know all this? Like, but yeah, it was
It's
crazy.
yeah. Like
It's been
comparing.
such a challenging issue, and it's an amazing opportunity to check in with ourselves about the energy that we're bringing to the world, right?
Hmm.
There's so many invitations to the divisiveness, and it's very easy, like I posted on Facebook yesterday a message that was like and all days, let's see love and let's be love.
Hmm.
And people liked it and they shared it and everything else, and then somebody wrote underneath it and they said, well, the way I'm going to be love today is to defriend everybody who's red. And I was like,
That's not love.
huh, that's not really what I was going for. And then
Yeah.
No.
I started to respond, and then I was like, no, they're not asking for my coaching right now. They're just like somebody who wants to say something on here. And
Yeah.
but I think looking at how we come at something like the election and the divisiveness that happened in the election, how do we get into our peace and out of our peace? How readily do we give up our peace? Is actually a really great segue to talking about parenting, because it is our inner peace is the most important element that we can bring to the world. It's the most important element that we can bring to any relationship that we're in, with our kids, with our significant others, with our friends, with the people that we agree with and don't agree with. And that's what is like getting pulled up right now here in the States, is this divisiveness of like, I don't agree with that person and therefore that person is wrong or bad. And then we're out of our peace and out of our power. We are not resourced. We are not in our empowered place. And disempowered people disempower people. Empowered people empower people. So people are calling it love and then condescending towards other people. That's not actually love. And so the same is true with our kids and with parenting, is when you get hijacked by something, whatever your kid might have done or not done that you wanted them to do, where do you go from there? And how do you practice bringing yourself back into your center? So everything out there is a reflection of who we are in here. And so when we lose our peace and we lose our power, we can recognize, aha, another powerful growth opportunity for me to practice. How do I get back to my peace and back to my power now, so that that's the energy that I'm bringing to this relationship? I know when my son was younger, there would be times when I would be hijacked and I would be suddenly losing my way, losing my center. Then we're both in this energy that's like this, and
Hmm.
nobody's leading, right? Well, actually, he's leading and he's leading us into the cave, and
Yeah.
I'm going with him into the cave. But when you do the practice of like every opportunity, pull yourself back to your centered, grounded place, then you're in your power to be able to decide, well, what do I want to do about this? Who do I want to be in the face of this election? Who do I want to be in the face of this circumstance where my kid, lied to me, or my kid is going through something stressful or whatever? So all of those are opportunities for sending our peace muscle to the gym. And the more that we send that muscle to the gym, the stronger it is. So the more and more things can just roll off our back and we stay in our peace and in our power. And if we don't do that practice along the way, then something comes along and we lose it pretty quickly. So
We
this is not
react versus that
perfection.
respond.
Yeah, we
Right.
react and then we're off to the races, because then
Yeah.
we're in the cave instead of in the bright sky. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all
So
connected.
to get there, when that stuff happens and you tend to do this, what would you suggest? Stop, breathe. What else? I mean, what would you do? Because it is easier said than done.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
you're just like, what?
Well, I actually we were talking before about how we can't quite remember what we talked about the last time. So anybody who's listening, if we repeat ourselves, we're really sorry. Just trust that you're meant to hear it again.
Yeah.
So the last time, I don't remember if we talked about the freedom framework that I created to help people to get back into their ability to think clearly. Did we talk about that? I don't think we did.
I don't think we did.
Potentially, but yeah, just elaborate on it.
It'd be good to hear it again if either way.
Okay, so this is a lot of what I do in my coaching is to help people get back to that unshakable inner peace and to build that. And I created a framework called the Freedom Framework, and we look at the acronym FREEDOM. And the F is for, okay, I'm noticing that I'm hijacked. I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm disappointed, I'm whatever I am. So we give ourselves space to feel the feelings. That's the F. You got to feel the feelings. You got to acknowledge these are the feelings that are going on. And then if we're able to just feel them, they take 60 or 90 seconds to actually move through our body. And then we're on the other side of it. It's the story that we keep telling ourselves that actually recreates the emotion again and again and again. So we want to start playing with, okay, in some cases, could I just feel this and then release it and let it go? And in a lot of cases, we could, if we just acknowledged, I am so disappointed right now, or I am so whatever right now, right? So I had a situation that happened a couple of weeks ago that I could use as an example for that, but let's move on for now. So the F is to feel it, and then I've got specific tools to help you feel it. You can do it on paper, you can do it with somebody that you trust, you can do it in prayer. Then the R is recognize that your brain is hijacked and that you cannot trust the information that your brain is going to give you. Because your brain is going to tell you that it's a good idea to go off on so-and-so. It's a good idea to scream. It's a good idea to send the text. It's a good idea to say the nasty thing. It's a good idea to act out in whatever. Right.
Fight or flight.
Exactly.
Right?
So
Yeah.
we're in that fight, flight, or freeze response. Your brain's been hijacked. You're not getting power up to your prefrontal cortex, which is what we talked about. That's where my husband's brain tumor was. And so in the limbic system, you're just in the emotional reaction. And the information that you're going to get is not reliable because your brain is in the red zone. I should have brought my glasses again, but it's in the red zone and it's scanning for threats. It's scanning for what are the problems. And so you do the R, which is recognize, all right, I just can't trust my brain right now for what it's going to give me all kinds of ideas. Then the first E is engage what I call a green zone activator. And so that engage the green zone activator is to, first of all, to do BTT, which is breathing and tuning into your body and tuning into your senses, doing all of that very intentionally, bringing yourself to the present moment. And then using something else that helps to activate a higher level of your thinking. So it might be, what's the gift in this? What's the powerful meaning I can make from this? What's the lesson I could make? How could I become more compassionate in this circumstance? How could I look at this circumstance differently? How could I see from a different perspective? So for example, if your kid is lying and you rise up, you're so mad and disappointed and you're having all of these emotions and you're telling yourself the story, oh my God, my kid's going to be a wreck because they lie and blah, blah, blah. And you're going off to the races. You pull it back. You give yourself the space to feel it. Okay, I'm disappointed, I'm upset, I'm worried, I'm whatever. And then you recognize, okay, I can't trust my brain right now. It's not giving me good information. You engage a green zone activator. So you're doing the deep breathing, you're bringing yourself into the present moment. And then you're thinking, okay, what else could this mean? How else could I see this? How could I change my perspective? Because who I'm going to be in the face of whatever's happening in my life is going to determine the quality of my life and the quality of my relationship with my kid too, right?
Yeah.
Like fly off the handle, this is not going to help.
No.
And so one of the things that helped me along the way is to find out that when a kid lies, it doesn't mean they're immoral, they don't have values. It means they have a problem they don't know how to solve.
Yeah. Or
It's
they're
a
fearful.
problem.
Or they're
Yeah.
fearful that you're gonna come at them. That would be
Well,
another.
that's the problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Either way, it's a problem they don't know how to solve. They're
Yeah.
afraid of you coming at them.
Yeah.
That's a problem I don't know how to solve. I'm just going to say this other thing so that
Yeah.
she's not mad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to whatever. I don't want to whatever. And so what really needs to be addressed at that point, and this is a whole nother topic having to do with parenting, but what really needs to be addressed at that point is helping them to develop problem solving skills.
Mm.
You're focused on the symptom instead of the actual problem. If you're slapping them on the hand for the lie, I mean, there might need to be consequences for that, but at the same time recognize, there's a problem here. They need a wider range of options for solving problems like this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so that's the E is engage a green zone activator. It can be compassion, curiosity, wonder, anything that you do like that starts to bring the energy back into your prefrontal cortex. So now you're thinking more clearly again. The second E, this is why I was not a math teacher.
She's holding up 3 fingers for those of you who are not watching.
My English students all the time, I'd be like, and I want 2 sentences. Okay. So the second E is to explore at least 3 options. So what we're doing right now is we're using this brain science. This is like such important information. We talked last time about the prefrontal cortex and how important that is for your thinking clearly, your planning, your ability to be empowered, your ability to create relationships and everything else. And when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze response, your prefrontal cortex is not online. So now we've done the deep breathing, which is a signal to our body we don't need to be in the fight, flight, or freeze response. We've engaged a green zone activator. So we're calling on our prefrontal cortex to think. And now we're pulling the energy up there. And now we're exploring at least 3 options. This is also calling the prefrontal cortex. Well, 3 options. One of them can be that first really terrible bad idea. One of them could be that total red zone idea, like write the nasty text, scream at your kid, like ground them for life, like whatever it is, right? But you got to come up with at least 2 other options. And just this process of creating options, exploring options, to use the E, helps you get back into your power. And then the D is to decide from those options and then do. So it's really freed, FREED. And then the O and the M are a little bit separate. The O is to optimize where you live on that ladder of well-being to begin with. So you're less likely to lose your cool to begin with. And then the M is to magnify the love in the joy in the world and the peace in the world. So altogether, it's the freedom framework. And
I love it.
There's so many tools for how we can get back into our peace. And I don't mean to say it's easy. Because man, that ego is strong and the fear. And when it gets a hold of us, it's like, it is such a tug of war.
It truly is. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are times when my clients will be like, oh, Ellie, I'm so happy that, like, at one moment they'll be like, Ellie, I'm so happy that you're in my head when I'm going through challenging situations. And other times they'll be like, Ellie, I'm so mad that you're in my head when I'm in challenging situations. Because we just so want to just do the like flying off the handle thing.
So true. So true. But yeah, flying off the handle never works. It never works.
It doesn't resolve anything.
And they don't know the difference. So it's like, it's up to you to be the one who goes through whether you use the freedom framework, which is really great, or whatever you do to calm yourself, to find your power again, not ego power, but your power to be effective for your child. Because that's who
Yeah.
as a parent, that's who your goal. In fact, that's another thing I want to ask you. So, um, what is the goal of parenting, right? I mean, some people go into it and they have different ideas of what that is. I mean, how do you determine what makes me be the parent I need to be for my kid? Or does it
That
matter?
that is a great question. Before I answer that, I want to just circle back and say I want to be really clear that it's a practice, not a perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All of the things that we're talking about. And
Yeah.
parents can be so hard on themselves and think, I've screwed up my kid forever because I lashed out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It is equally as important that we demonstrate for them the self-compassion when we do something quote unquote wrong, because we're developing their inner voice as well and
Mm-hmm.
how they're going to talk to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we then get really, really angry at ourselves, they're going to see that. If we like, they're paying attention. Our kids are watching whatever we're doing, whenever we're doing it. And so to recognize, okay, my intention is not to fly off the handle. But if I do, then I do my best to say, this is not the best part of me. I am going to go and get myself together. And then I'd like to come back and finish this conversation. And then come back to the conversation and say, I'm really sorry. You deserve better than that. And this was a moment, like, have you ever had a moment like that where you lost your way? You're helping them to develop the ability to understand that we all get hijacked sometimes. We
Yeah.
all lose our way sometimes. And to have the compassion for that, the self-compassion for that, and then also the ability to redirect ourselves. All of that is role modeling for them. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so, so, so important.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's a practice, not a perfect. So I love the question of what is the goal of parenting? And I think it's really important to step back and be very intentional about thinking about that. So for me, it might be a little bit different than for you. It might be a little bit different for everybody that we meet. But if we don't stop and think about it, then we're in reaction mode. So one of the ways that we get into being proactive and being intentional about who we want to be in the world and our relationship with our kid is to actually take the time to write an intention. This is who I want to be as a parent. This is what I want my relationship to be like with my kid. This is how I would like my kid to grow up. And when we take the time to write those things out, we're actually activating our brain to look for opportunities to help make that happen. And we're creating a bigger context for all of the things that happen in the world
Mm-hmm.
in our relationship. So if I know I want to be loving as a mom and I want Ben to always know that he can come to me, then I have that in mind no matter what our exchange is. So if he comes to me with something and I fly off the handle, I want to immediately recognize, okay, that doesn't match my big context.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to know that he can come to me. So let me go back to him and say, like just what we talked about, I'm sorry that I flew off the handle. I don't like to do that. Let's talk about how we could have avoided the situation. Like go back and rebuild, with the apology, with the conversation, demonstrate all of that. So if we've got that bigger context, I want to be loving. I want him to know that he can talk to me. And I've got the context that I want him to be independent and I want him to be strong. Then all of the decisions that we make go through that filter. And if we're not intentional about it, we don't have a filter. And then we're just like, whatever. And we're just doing whatever in any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I can think of, for example, when Ben was in high school and he had an opportunity to go to Greece with some kids from school. And it was a really fantastic opportunity. I'm a huge fan of travel. I want him to travel as much as he can. My family's always been big into traveling. And at the same time, he was a sophomore. And I found out that the other kids who were going were juniors and seniors. There were no kids that were his age that were going, or maybe there was one. And none of his current friend group was going. And I was like, all right, he's going to be in a completely foreign place. He's going to be traveling without me. He's going to be traveling with people that I don't even know. He's going to be traveling with kids that he doesn't know. There's going to be traveling with kids who have, some of them have kind of a reputation for getting into some stuff. And I'm like, all of this is going through my head, right? And so there's a part of me that's like, I want to put the kibosh on this. But then I check in with myself and I say, well, if what I want is for him to be independent, let me talk with him about my concerns and see what he has to say about this. So I sit down and I talk to him and I say, this is what I'm excited about this trip for you. These are what my concerns are about this trip for you. How do you feel about this? And he said, you know what, Mom, I'm actually really interested in the idea of getting to know other people. And I'm really excited to go to Greece. And I think if, things come up that I don't want to do, drugs, drinking, whatever, like I can say no. And I'm thinking, well, at some point, it's time. If they're telling you they're ready, if you've helped them see what's going on and what the potentials are, and they're telling you they're ready, believe them. And so he went to Greece. I really had to do my own work to not be in that fear-based place, to not be in that reaction-based place, to stay focused on my higher context for what I wanted for him as a kid, what I wanted for our relationship. And so when he came back, I was blown away. The kid gets in the car, talks the whole way home. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. We went to a restaurant on the way home. He opened the door for me, stepped in front of me and said, 2 for dinner, please. And I was like,
what? He just grew up.
what just happened? He grew in so many ways.
Yeah.
He did have the opportunity to say no, thank you to some things that he didn't want to engage in. And he had the opportunity to become friends with people he never would have spent time with other than that, and develop these relationships that helped him in so many ways to develop who he was as a kid, as a growing adult. What did he like? What did he not like? He got to expand his own horizons. I wouldn't have been able to let him go if I didn't have that bigger context in mind. It's always got to be with the bigger picture. We are not meant to put them in bubble wrap. And if we're not intentional about what is that, like, what do we want for them, then we tend to wrap them in bubble. Don't hurt my kid. Don't hurt my kid. And, make it too, like, so safe for them. But that doesn't ultimately prepare them for everything that comes later. So
I love the way you pre-framed it by having that conversation and saying, here's what I'm concerned about. And then you gave him an opportunity to already go, this could come up. How am I going to deal with it? So that when it did come up, he was already prepared.
Yes.
I'm just going to say no, or, it's not me. I don't want to do that, or whatever. Having that pre-frame conversation prepared him, just like you're preparing, saying by parents knowing why you're doing this, what is my goal?
Yes.
Same thing. And so you taught him a huge lesson with doing that.
And I think a really important aspect of this is that you don't want to let your fears dictate children's comfort zone.
Yeah. I think we do that a lot.
That's a really good one.
Because it is hard. We're scared. But I like how you attacked it with 2 different ways and had a conversation, which made you feel more comfortable, allowed you to open up, and then to trust him.
Yes.
I think oftentimes we don't think they're capable or whatever. But
they can't become capable if they're not out or figuring it out.
They have to have that experience.
And we think, like, worst case, he says yes to the drinking or yes to the whatever. That's not really the worst case. He's going to learn from that too, right? Yeah. He's going to learn from all of the things, and he's going to figure out, who does he want to be? And what experiences does he want to have? And what friendships feel good for him to have? He can't figure that out if I'm dictating all of the things he can and can't do and all the people he's going to be exposed to and all of the people that he's not. There's another example of, like, not letting your fears dictate their comfort zone, which is that when did we talk about Ben and the swim team?
No, I don't think so.
Ben decided that he wanted to try out for the swim team when he was a freshman. I think he was a freshman. And I was like, I'm telling you guys, he knew how to swim, but it was not pretty. It was just like flailing around. And he tells me he wants to try. Yeah, exactly. He tells me that he wants to try out for the swim team. And I was like, oh my God, like they're going to tease him. They're going to make fun of him. Like, I'm like really going through a thing. And so I sat down with him and I said, so is this really important for you? And he said, yeah, a lot of my friends are going to be doing it. And I think it would be really fun. And I said, okay, great. I said, I do want to let you know that the people who are going to be trying out have probably swam, whatever, a lot more than you have. And so you're going to have a different skill set. And he was like, oh, I know, Mom. I know. I'm ready for that. And so I again pre-framed it, set the context so that he understood what was potentially going to happen. And then it was up to me to still myself. These are my emotions, not his. They're not to be projected onto him. So holding my emotions, holding my heart through it. And when he went off to go have the day where he was, trying out for the swim team. Well, he made the swim team because I think everybody made the swim team. I don't think any great feat. And then we get to the end of the swimming season and they're giving out the awards that they always do at the end of the season. And the coach gets up and he is like, so now I need to give out the award for the most improved. And he said, I have to say the first time that this kid got in the pool, I was afraid I might need to throw a life preserver. And it became something that was just a really fun part of Ben's high school experience. He got to be a better swimmer. He was consistently the last person, but he was okay with that. He was just improving his own time. So it's like walking with them, trusting where their light is taking them, their joy, their pull, their energy is taking them. Not us guiding them, this is what I think you should do and what you shouldn't do, but paying attention, what lights up for him, and then how do I create some guardrails in that experience and keep these lines of communication open so that he can share if this is going well, if this is not going well, and everything else. Then they build this sense of like, I've got this. And I know my mom's there, but I also know she knows I've got this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
There are a
that
few.
I was going to
Sorry,
say
go ahead.
Rayhan probably couldn't speak to this from the other side pretty well because he had a very unusual experience growing up where he wanted to leave the country and go play soccer in another country. And
Yeah.
his at 13 years old, and his parents, I'm sure, were terrified, but they let
Yeah.
him go. But
Yeah.
they probably let you go with guardrails, right? Or, the bumpers, as we call it in bowling.
Yeah, there's obviously an element of trust, right? Like trusting your kid, right? My parents had to trust that I would be responsible, right? To even let me, embark on that journey. And there are a few things that I'm taking away from this is like, yeah, um, you you weren't being controlling. You weren't making decisions for Ben, right? It's almost like you were making them with him. You
Yeah.
were coming together and having that communication together, and you were sharing your concerns, and you were asking him what he was thinking about that and what he thought about those concerns. And then he would, in some way, try and, I guess, reassure you if that's something that he really felt pulled to do. And another thing that I was thinking about was it also removes the element of rebellion within a kid
Mm-hmm.
because when you're a kid, like as a kid, I know for me, when I felt like my parents were in on it with me, there was no need for rebellion. Whereas sometimes, if parents are like, "Oh yeah, you can't do this." I mean, I've been told like I can't do things so many times from other adults, from teachers, from whoever, and my first thing is like, "Oh yeah, watch me."
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Want to make a
It's
bet?
that yeah, it's like it's that little bit of rebellion. It's like, well, why can't I? I want to try it now. I want to do it,
Yeah.
even if no one is on board with it.
Yes.
And it completely removes that. And I
Mhm.
think it creates a very, very healthy bond and relationship. And it all comes from that communication. It all comes from, yeah, setting the stage in the beginning, having that discussion, coming together, and just being vulnerable. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I really do.
I'm really
And as
glad.
we talk about so often, taking your own ego out of it because your ego doesn't matter and your ego gets in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
The focus should be on them,
Yeah.
right? Not on you.
Yeah, and your curiosity about
Yeah.
them because they've got their own, the universe moving through them, the divine moving through them, their own higher self that is guiding them forward. You don't want to to clamp down on that because then at some point there is going to be an equal and opposite reaction to that. I know somebody that I interviewed at one point when I was doing this whole program about understanding men, and he told me that he grew up in a family where he and his brother were required to practice violin 6 hours a day.
Oh gosh.
They
Oh,
didn't have weekends, they didn't have time after school. They both ended up rebelling in such a huge way
I'm sure.
because that is a drive that we have to be independent, to figure out who we are. And boys have an especially strong drive to go and conquer and have adventures and everything else. And
Mhm.
so to not leave some space for that is ultimately creating a place where there's such a rub that there's going to be this distance. Now, that's
Yeah.
not to say that my relationship with Ben has always been perfect. There has been so many challenges along the way, but it's always keeping that bigger vision in mind. Okay, on the end of all of this, what is most important to me? Is it that he do his homework because I said he should do his homework? Or is it that Ben always knows that we can talk to each other?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
there are times when you're making that choice and you don't realize that that's the choice you're making. But when
Hmm.
you make the homework, the number one thing all the time, all the time, all the time, and by the way, you need to toe the line in this, and by the way, you need to toe the line in this, and by the way, you need to toe the line in this, then you're creating a problem. And
Yeah.
so building their own ability to navigate those circumstances is incredibly important. I remember
Yeah.
at one time,
If they don't do the homework, let them deal with the consequences. It's not your job. It's like,
exactly.
okay, it's not the end of life for them if they don't do their homework. It's a lesson that will be learned of the consequences of, oh, I didn't do my homework. Now I'm in trouble at school because I didn't do my homework and now I'm suffering here. I better do my homework next time. I don't need mom to tell me,
Right.
right? Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
otherwise I'm mad at mom and I'm not going to do my homework anyway because I'm mad because I'm going to rebel because I don't want to because she told
Right.
me to.
And then all your energy is going into the rebelling and
Yeah.
not the actual figuring out of what do you feel drawn to
Yeah.
and doing that. I also wanted to circle back, Rehan. You said that it has to do with trusting your kid. And I
Hmm.
want to say it does, and it has to do with trusting the universe.
Hmm.
It has to do with trusting that everybody here is on their path and that your kid is going to have the experiences that they are meant to have. When we're back to spirituality, but everybody's going to have the experiences that they are meant to have, that they decided on some level to experience when they came into this lifetime.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, yes, it's trusting your kid, but some people might hear that as like, do I trust them that they're never going to drink? Do I trust them that they're never going to do the thing that they're not supposed to do? Well, that's not really it. That's not the ultimate trust, right? The trust is, well, have they demonstrated that they are reliable and responsible enough to go to France? For sure, there is that level of trust. You don't just willy-nilly somebody who's, rebelling all the time and you're like, sure, go to France. For sure, there's an element of, okay, do I believe them to be responsible enough? But I also don't want it to be like that there's this idea that I have to know 100% that I can trust that they're going to do exactly what I said they're going to do. It's like, on balance, do I trust that they are developing and evolving enough to handle themselves responsibly? And can I hold my own heart through whatever happens and trust that in the long run, it will be for their highest and best?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
Trusting
that.
the journey. Yeah, trusting the journey and how it will unfold, and that understanding that however it is going to unfold, it is in the most beautiful way for whoever it is, for their kids, for whoever. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
I
if
love
it's
that.
messy along the way.
I
Yeah.
think when you have this whole different, what you're saying here is having this whole different mindset as far as parenting goes, that I think a lot of, probably almost most parents, because most parents parent the way they were parented, right?
Yes.
And it continues and continues and continues.
Yeah.
But I love the way that if you have the intention and you go, what do I want the outcome to be? Nobody wants their kid to be rebelling against them. Nobody wants to send your kid off after they turn 18 and go off to college or whatever, and never wants to come back home. We don't want
Right.
that. Nobody
Mm.
does, as far as I know. I mean, I wouldn't. So having that
Yeah.
intention ahead of time pre-frames everything you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like having values, right?
Hmm.
Sticking with that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your driver.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that another important concept is recognizing that you have a backpack that you have been carrying your entire life with your limiting beliefs, with your fears, with your understandings of the world, and doing your own work to work through that backpack and to figure out what do you want to pass down and what do you not want to pass down. Because if we're not intentional about unpacking, I have a whole guided meditation about this, unpacking our backpack and figuring out, is one I want to hold on to or not, then
Mhm.
if we don't do that work, then we're just taking this heavy, heavy backpack that we had growing up and we're just passing it on. And that's the last thing we want to do.
Right.
It's our own limitations, our own wounded places that we're passing on to our kid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So doing the reflection, doing the, getting a coach, going through programs, having conversations with people who have navigated this terrain. And it doesn't come with an instruction manual, but it does come with a lot of role models and a lot of people that you can talk to about what works, what doesn't. Do I agree with that person? Do I not agree with that person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not
Ellie,
necessarily your parents.
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
And Ellie, I have a question. I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. What was your upbringing like,
Good
and
question.
how conscious of a decision was it for you to change things when it came to how you wanted to show up for your kid? Like, what were the differences there? I really want to learn more about your
Yeah.
story to just see the differences.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was thinking about that as Susan was referring to that we tend to parent the way that our parents did. So I think what's generally true is if you don't take the time to reflect and decide who you want to be as a parent, you will either mimic their parenting or you will go against it. You will do the opposite.
Opposite. Yeah.
And so what we really want to find is, okay, let's figure out what was good, what wasn't good, who do I want to be?
Mm.
And so for me, gosh, how would I describe? I am a very different mother than my mom was. My mom did the absolute best that she could. She had a very complicated family history and a lot of patterns that had to do with codependency and all kinds of things like that.
Mhm.
And I think she did not know how to handle her own emotions. And so she squished mine. She didn't mean to
Mm.
do that, but that was the backpack that she sent down to me. And if we're not careful, we will pass that on. We will continue to pass that on. And so
Mhm.
I was taught that I was supposed to be like the cute, pretty, nice little girl, be pleasant, don't make anybody uncomfortable, for sure, don't make anybody angry. I
Mhm.
was taught, one of my mom's big heavy brick in her backpack had to do with jealousy. And so when I was at my best friend's house one day after school and spent the night, and I came home the next day and my mom was like, "What'd you do?" And I was like, "Oh, well, we did our makeup and we listened to Andy Gibb," and dating
That's
myself.
dating you. I know who Andy Gibb is.
And
Rayon
we
doesn't.
made chocolate chip cookies. It was like a list of things that we had done. And she said, "Oh, she's trying to make you fat."
Oh, ouch.
And I was like, "What? You're talking about my best friend? Why would my best friend be trying to make me fat?" And she was like, "Well, she's jealous of you. She's trying to make you fat." And I was like, I can look back on that now as an adult and see that was my mom passing down her
Yeah.
SH blank, blank, right? That was my mom passing down her backpack. I didn't know that at the time. At the time, I was like, what? Like my whole worldview got shifted. Like I can't
Mhm.
trust my best friend. I don't know if my mom's making sense. Can I trust my mom? I don't like jealous. People are like jealous and they're going to do mean things and try to sabotage me. Like it was so confounding for me. And it really created some ongoing issues that I have since worked through. I mean, who knows? Because we work through as much as we can. And then
Mm.
we also know we're going to pass some stuff down to our kids that we didn't even mean to. Like
Yeah.
we're going to
Yeah.
do the best we can.
Yep.
And then we're going to make mistakes along the way. And that comes back to that faith and that trust that whatever it is perfect as long as we keep showing up with love, we keep doing everything that we can to do the best that we can. It's in the lap of the giddy gods, as my mom used to say, that like it's going to work out somehow. We can only do our best. So that tells you a little bit about my upbringing. My dad was pretty silent. Um, my mom was definitely the more dominant figure in my household. I feel like it would be so valuable for us in school systems to have conversations about relationships and different ways to be in relationships, different ways
Mhm.
to parent. I think
Yeah.
that would be so much more important than algebra. You
Yeah.
know, like, okay, all we know is the relationship between our parents and maybe our best friend's parents, right? We don't have a lot of models of what does a relationship look like, and we don't have a
Mhm.
lot of models of what does parenting look like. And I think the more we can gather evidence and information about like, oh, these two people are really sarcastic in their relationship, and these people are really loving, and these people are really funny, and these people are really like, we get to, the more consciously we can think about all of this, the more aware we can be about our parenting, about our relationships, everything else. Hopefully, the more empowered we make our kids,
Yeah.
we help them to become more aware.
Yeah. We
Does
talk
that
about
answer
this a
the question
lot.
right?
Awareness is key.
Yeah.
When
Oh,
you're
wait.
not aware, you're unconscious and you just do things and you don't even know what you're doing.
Right. Like
Just
Yeah.
my mom, when she
old
said
patterns. Yeah.
yeah, when she said she's trying to make you jealous,
Hmm.
my mom loved me. She wasn't trying to mess me up. She was trying to
Mm.
No.
protect me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if she was aware and she did the work, she would go, "Oh, well, that's a stupid thing to say."
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's my
Because that makes
stuff.
no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about intention as well and having that intention when you're parenting, right? Being very intentional. Um, how like because hearing you talk and share everything, it it all makes sense. All of it makes sense.
Hmm.
And then my biggest question as a very young person who's like, whoa, and just like in awe, I'm like, where did you learn all this stuff? Was it through experience? Like, was it through just like you looking for the knowledge? Did it come to you somehow? Like, how did you understand all this stuff and apply it to your life?
I think I've been like a sponge. I've always been very growth minded, growth oriented.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that you guys are aware there's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And anybody who's listening, if you've never heard of it, go look it up on YouTube. There's a fantastic video that will teach you. And it is one of the most important things that you need to know as a parent.
And a book called
Literally.
Mindset by Carol
What was
Dweck.
it?
And a book called
Yes, yes.
Mindset, Carol Dweck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want to go deeper, which I highly recommend, get that book. I
Exactly.
have that book. Yes.
I think
But
I
at
have it
least
right
go
here.
watch, at least go watch the, 5-minute YouTube
Yeah.
video that explains the difference between them. So I've always had a growth mindset, and you want to encourage your kids to have a growth mindset. Side note. And so I've been like a sponge. It's been like, okay, well, I know what didn't work for me as a child growing up, but by the same token, it totally worked for me because I like who I am now. So trusting the journey, it didn't look pretty at some points, but so it was me evolving and growing. It was me going to personal growth and development events. I was a Tony Robbins Platinum partner and did a bunch of stuff in the Tony Robbins world. I've done a ton of therapy in my life. I've read a lot of books on parenting. When I was at the most challenging moments in my parenting journey with Ben, I came across the Total Transformation Parenting Program by James Lehman.
Hmm.
And that is for kids who are either really acting out or have very, very strong wills. And it was life changing for me. So I just soaked up everything that I could. I tried everything that I could. And I also have a friend who's one of my dearest friends in the world who raised 3 children and had been on the parenting journey and was very conscious about her parenting and what had worked and what hadn't. And so she was a trusted resource for me. I was very careful that I was only listening to trusted resources. There are some times when I remember I was talking to one of my clients many, many years ago, and she said, "Oh, Ellie, I met this woman who was 90 years old. So I started asking her all these questions about relationships and asking her advice about relationships." And I said, "Did she have good relationships?" And she was like, "I don't know." She said, "I just figured because she's 90 that she probably had figured something out." And I said, "Well, what we don't know is whether she figured out good things or not, right?" So I'm always aware of who I'm listening to. Like,
Right.
let it be a trusted resource. Pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also had people who have been in Ben's life, a guy that I dated for many, many years. And he was fantastic at helping me have a more adult, like not get pulled into the cave and help pull me back out to the bright sky and help me see, look what he's doing now. You can see that a lot of times kids are trying to pull you into their energy because they're uncomfortable with their own anger or their own anxiety. And so they want to pull you into the dance. And so he was able to help me start to see what Ben was doing so that I was less likely to go here and here and here. And I started to be able to see, like, oh, it starts with drama and then it goes to anger and then it goes to helplessness. It's like there's some little check mark in his brain that's like, that didn't work. Okay, let me try this. That didn't work. Okay, let me try this. That didn't work. So he taught me to be Miss Monotone, to just stay steady and not get like sucked in. So the answer to the question is it's really intentional learning and wanting to be the best mom that I possibly could, and always being willing to have a beginner's mind, no matter how much I've learned.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Being open, just being open. I think you mentioned this in the first part of the episode from last week, but just being open so that and curious to the energy that's coming your way. Because it sounds like there's a lot of self-love involved in that, right? When you're learning and everything, you're learning for yourself. You're trying to, going to therapy, for example, is also like these are all forms of self-love, right? Giving yourself that love. And it also sounds like there's a lot of support and love from the outside as well. Whether that be just from the universe, but also the people around you, which could also be through the universe as well. So yeah, it sounds like just it's a lot of open-mindedness, curiosity, and love and willingness to just receive it all. Yeah.
Yes. And self-compassion, 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 because you're going to mess it up along the way and you're going to say things that you regret and you're going to, like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that. And
Yeah.
so picking yourself up and recognizing our brains get hijacked and we will say and do things that we would never say and do in our right mind, right? In our mind. And so not thinking that there's some ideal way of being or doing a parent that you're going to attain and then you're never going to mess up. As far as I'm aware, that does not exist, and that is not what this journey is about. This journey of parenting is one of the greatest spiritual gifts that we have, because it will touch every little button that we have to be triggered by, and then we get to grow through that.
And it's good to allow your child to see you go through that growth too, because then they'll start to go, oh, I don't have to be perfect. Oh, I don't have to do it right every time. I'm going to mess up and it's okay because I'm going to learn from that. And they're watching you do that.
Yes.
Being vulnerable and not being afraid to let the emotions show. I think parents sometimes tend to just put this block up. Oh, I can't let them see me be angry, or I can't let them see me be sad, or I can't let them see me doubt what it is, the decision I want to make. Put it out there. Let them see. That's how they learn, because you are their most significant role model.
Yes.
Right.
One of my clients, when we first started working together, I was encouraging her, with the freedom framework and the breathing, the BTT, breathe, tune into your body, tune into your senses. encouraged her to take a moment. She had 3 kids. There was always a lot going on. Take a moment to yourself to center yourself. So she went and she put a stool out in this little vestibule, and she taught her kids, when I go to this stool, this is mom getting back to center. So if you want the best version of mom, you're going to give me that time, right?
I love that.
She went out and she would, if there were a lot going on, she would just go and she would just put her hand on her heart, sit on the stool and center herself. And she had to do that quite a bit in the initial months. But as she kept practicing and coming back to our one-on-one coaching again and again, and she was part of my group coaching too, and she started going through all of my programs and everything else, she got stronger and stronger and stronger. And just a month or two ago, she said, Ellie, I got rid of the stool. I don't need it anymore.
Ah,
Wow.
And that's not because life suddenly got easier. It's because she
Mm.
got clearer and stronger about who she was. So she
yeah.
didn't in the same way.
And
And
what
that's
a
true for all of us.
beautiful thing for those kids to watch, because they're
Yeah.
going to have that same thing happen to them. And now they know I can go get a stool and it's okay.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Wow.
I think this is a good time to talk about that book that's behind you, Susan. Um,
Yes, Ellie's book, which I'm
yeah.
halfway through, and I love, love, love it.